Thank you, Patmapriya, for joining us on a very short notice. And in the world of sanitation, the experts in sanitation would not require your introduction. But for the people who are going to view this video across India at the panchayat level or at the block level or at the district level, they may not be knowing you, except some states definitely will know you, but it will be useful for you to give an introduction about what you do and what your broader background about sanitation are. Can you please introduce?
So my name is Padmapriya and I am the chief executive of an organization called Sanitation First India, which is the sister organization of Sanitation First UK. In India, we're registered as Wherever the Need India Services, or Witness as we are popularly called. And the difference between us and other WASH organizations is the fact that our focus has been primarily and predominantly on environmentally sustainable sanitation, or non-sewage sanitation, as which is the latest word to describe this. So we have so far built around more than 5,000 family eco-san toilets, more than 200 school sanitation blocks which have eco-san toilets, and we have also done DWAT systems, and we work with, we are the pioneers of India's and probably Asia's first container-based sanitation system. So that's a little brief about the work
Yeah.
that we do.
So that is quite important for the current phase of sanitation program in India,
Yes.
particularly when the Swachh Bharat 2.0 is starting both in rural and urban context. So I'm sure that this dialogue between us is going to be quite useful for those practitioners and administrators who are going to lead the sanitation program both in rural and urban segments. So container-based sanitation is not a word that the world of sanitation is quite familiar across India, although in some pockets like Tamil Nadu, quite a familiar word. In some other discussions of the fecal sludge management coalition and all that, we come to about this word. So can you little explain what is container based sanitation?
Absolutely, and I am not surprised because across the world, even today, there are only 6 organizations that actually are implementing projects with container-based sanitation. So the reason why we do this container-based sanitation is particularly to address those pockets in the urban slums or in areas which are like civil encroachments or high water table areas or coastal areas, where it is not possible to construct a proper toilet, be it ecosan or a flush toilet. It might not be possible for the government to provide drainage or to provide water services in that area for people to have their own toilets. It could be a space factor, it could be a legal ownership factor, or it could be probably nomadic or migrant populations who just go and park themselves wherever it is convenient. So when you're talking about an open defecation free status, unless and until every single type of population in that city or that town is covered, we cannot claim that we have had complete coverage and access, and that is the focus of SBM2. So under the context, we came up with this innovation of container-based sanitations, where what we do is we build movable toilets, which are about 6 feet high, 6.5 feet high and 4 feet wide, which are movable and which sit on platforms. And here these toilets are basically ecosan toilets, but then where the fecal matter which is covered by the cover material, which could be ash or sawdust or even dry sand that is available in their local areas, is actually collected in containers that sit on rollers beneath the toilet. So what happens is, just like any other ecosan toilets, for those who are aware of ecosan toilets, there is a basin which is a urine diverting dry toilet basin. The user will sit in a way that he is actually facing the door of the toilet, so that if he is urinating, it is collected separately. If he is passing motion, then rather than pour water into the hole through which the fecal matter drops into the container, he will only use a cover material like ash or sand or sawdust, and then close the lid, and then he might step aside and wash himself. Or what we see in the coastal areas is that they would quickly hop, skip and jump to their own households to personally cleanse themselves. So this is what is the difference between the structure of a regular toilet and a container based toilet. But then, because of the cover material, what happens is that the There is no odor. The urine and the fecal matter are completely separated. The odor comes only when the the acid in the urine is reacting with the fat in the fecal matter. Because they are separated, there is no odor. There are no flies. There is no chance of anything leaking because these are airtight containers that are sitting underneath the toilet. This is a community toilet model. One toilet can cater to a maximum of 40 to 45 people. And so the container has about, it's a capacity of 108 kilos. So it fills up in about 10 to 12 days. When the container is almost full, what the users can do is that they put the lid and lock the container and introduce a new container beneath the toilet. So the container moves to the next spot underneath the toilet where it is composting. The roller underneath the toilet can accommodate a maximum of 4 containers at any given point in time. So there are doors both in the front and at the back of the toilet. When the 5th container is introduced, the first container, which is already composted for more than 40 days, is now ready for collection. So our collection team then goes and collects these boxes, which are already sealed. They have the proper PPE and the hooks to move the container to our van, and then it is brought to our yard where it is composting for the remainder of the period. So for 40 days it composts underneath the toilet, and then we keep it in the yard for a period of about 6 months, after which it is mixed with neem cakes and to kind of other additives, organic additives, to enhance the nutrients in the compost, and then it is used as a soil conditioner or a organic fertilizer for crop growing. So it's then distributed to agriculturists or to nurseries or households based on the demand.
Current budget also, you would have seen that fecal sludge management has been a major area
Yes.
that has been focused by the budget. This solution can give a benefit to the sanitation value chain, as far as I understand. Can you bit elaborate the journey of sanitation first in this process? How did you start? What made you to think of this kind of an arrangement in the coastal areas? I understand that it started from Pondicherry coastal area. So what made you to think of these solutions, and how did you start, and what were the kind of initial challenges? How did you address all of them, and then how did you make it a success?
Yes, our founder, Dr. Paramashivan, is a person who is quite well known in the water and sanitation sectors. He has over 40 years of experience in WASH, and he had also been in charge of taking care of the water and sanitation requirements of the Cuddalore and Pondicherry districts through another organization where he was working as a advisor in building toilets to those people who had lost their houses during the tsunami. So
Right.
what had happened is, originally those people being fisher folk in a coastal area, normally what happens is that the men are out at sea during the night, and in the morning it is not feasible for them to return to their households just to defecate. So most of the defecation would be open defecation by the seaside. Similarly, the women would go somewhere in the open and they would just open defecate. So toilets were not part of the household infrastructure just after the tsunami. So if you take 2004, 5, 6, those were the time where most villages had a large number of people open defecating. But when the households were built, when shelters were built, permanent shelters were built to those people who had lost their houses during the tsunami, the toilets were included in them. So they were new users of flush toilets. And what we found is that two things. One was there was a higher incidence of waterborne diseases in that area where we had built a lot of houses with toilets. And the second thing, we found that the leaching effect in the water sources had also been higher. So this kind of gave him an idea to probably attempt something where there will not be any discharge of untreated waste in the environment. And that is when, immediately after the tsunami, EcoSan was started. It was tested out as a pilot methodology in Cuddalore, in the coastal areas. And today we have about 7 villages where almost, I would say, 90% of the households are having EcoSan toilets. And very often what we do is we test the water in these 7 villages versus water in villages where the number of flush toilets is maximum. And we always find that the pollution in the water sources is very much minimal in those places where there are EcoSan toilets. So this was the genesis of introducing EcoSan toilets in the villages. Subsequently, we found that in Kadalur, the Kadalur and Pondicherry areas where predominantly our toilets are kind of clustered, there we found that during the rainy seasons or cyclones that hit that coastal area year after year, we find that there is water logging even for 15 to 20 days, where any toilet becomes unusable in that area but for the EcoSan toilets. And even our container based toilets, what we do is we just move them from their current locations to some place higher, and then everybody is able to use the toilet without any difficulty. So we do not have a situation at any point in time that there is a toilet that cannot be used, or there is a pit that is overflowing and the sewage is getting mixed up with the water that is stagnant, causing waterborne diseases. So these were the primary reasons why we started this. And then we have branched out into container-based sanitations. We do decentralized wastewater treatment systems in areas where probably they are willing to give us the space to do community toilets, but they do not want to do flush toilets because either the water availability is low there, or because they really want to make sure that there is no water pollution. In those areas, we built the decentralized wastewater treatment system, or the DWAT system, beneath the toilet block. And these community toilet blocks then get the water completely recycled in a natural manner, which can be used for flushing again in the toilets. So this has been our modus operandi over the years that we have operated in coastal or high water table areas.
Hearing this part of it, I'm sure that most of the people who will listen to this discussion will realize that this specific model can be a terrain appropriate toilet technology solution for not only water high water table area or flood prone area. It can also be for any other location. So one question there, which may clarify one specific point, is that when you said during the any specific natural calamity, what you do is you keep the containers little up. Other than that, no modification is needed in the process, and the toilet is so toilets are built naturally. The EcoSan toilets are built on a little higher plane if compared to other toilets. So is that the major reason for the toilets are not getting affected with water, or any other reason there?
Okay, there are two types of EcoSan toilets. One is the constructed toilet, where it will be constructed with brick and mortar, where the chambers sit beneath the toilets. Yes, the seat will be higher than the regular level, but then the chambers are completely sealed by concrete. So even if water is logged for 15 days, 20 days, 30 days, there is no way that the water can seep into the EcoSan chambers. The chambers are only opened once in a year or once in 15 months if a small family of 4 people are using the toilet, to remove the compost. Otherwise, the chambers are completely sealed. So those toilets can continue to be in operation irrespective of whatever be the climatic conditions. The container-based sanitation toilets are movable toilets anyways. So what we will do is we will move the toilet from one location to a higher location and put it there. No modification is required. So be it a constructed toilet or be it a movable toilet, for EcoSan it can be used in any terrain, not just in waterlogged or in high water table terrain, even in desert terrain or in places like hilly terrain. We recently did a study for a Gates funded project. We did an evaluation for a Gates funded project in Rajasthan, where we found that they had actually motivated people to construct their own toilets by training women masons.
Correct.
And what had happened in all the killas, wherever these toilets have been constructed, up to 100 feet below, there had been the leaching effect. So even in those cases, they are not realizing the pollution that is being caused, especially in a hilly terrain. So even there you can do EcoSan. In dry areas where water availability is a challenge, providing water for drinking is the foremost priority. Today in Jal Jeevan Mission, we are talking about every household having drinking water by 2024. But then the water availability is finite. And then it is shared by the industrial sources, by agricultural sources, and by the households. So there, if the households have to maximize whatever share they are getting for drinking, they don't have to actually flush down water in a toilet. Because in EcoSan, the other benefit that you're getting, on one hand, you're not polluting the environment, you're converting waste into an agricultural input. The other benefit that you're getting is actually you're saving hell a lot of water for other uses.
Yes. So one additional question that comes in my mind is about the accessibility of this toilet infrastructure. So one of the things I have seen about Ecosan toilets, because of the plane is high, many people with physical disabilities find it little challenging to reach there. So is the mobile or the movable toilet with the container-based sanitation that you are providing, is there a possibility for those toilets to be made accessible?
Absolutely. In fact, one of the focus areas of sanitation first is inclusion, as I had mentioned. So we actually do last mile coverage for all those categories of people who cannot or are not able to be covered by any other government schemes or other things that are already existing in the environment. As far as EcoSan is concerned, if it is being provided for somebody with disability or even households which have senior people or who have children, there we provide ramps. So ramps are quite convenient with handrails, so they are able to go and access. Not just that, even if there are people who have wheelchair, like there are wheelchair bound people in a particular household, we even make the basin into a western toilet basin. The chambers remain the same, but the person doesn't have to actually squat to use the toilet. So that modification also we have done. Similarly, in the container-based toilet model, what we would do is that we would probably place the movable toilet in a place before which we would have a ramp that's constructed. It could be a wooden ramp or it could be a steel ramp on which the person could actually go up and access it. So that extra provision is always provided to make the toilet usable by every single user who is bound to use it. Now, although the container-based toilets are community toilets, what we do is we allow the community to choose the users who are actually going to be using the toilet.
All right.
That way, we make sure that the cleanliness and the maintenance of the toilet is taken care of. So we do a mapping exercise. We sit with the communities. We talk to them about EcoSan, because the big challenge that other people perceive with EcoSan is that this is not something that can be done in the community because the community will not accept it. They think flush toilets are the more sophisticated mechanism, and I see this even among practitioners.
Right.
Whenever we go and speak about EcoSan, they'll say, oh, this is old fashioned, or this will not work in the communities. And here I am talking when I have 4 lakh people who are my users who are behind me for the last 13 years. And these are people who have now even, like they'll say, my Samandhi's house, they have retrofitted into an EcoSan, or my daughter got married and started her own family and she only wants a EcoSan, because they've understood the benefits of this. And it's not just the convenience or not just the cost benefit. Even getting water, you build a toilet, it's the woman who has to make sure that the water is brought and the toilet is cleaned, whereas here all that she need to do is pick up the ash from a chula, use the toilet. No, nothing else is required. There is no, you don't need to use acid or cleaning agents, or there is no smell, there is no odor. You would find that women are making the children sit on the platform before the toilet and they are feeding them because there is no smell. In fact, Doordarshan had done a program for the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi in our projects
Right.
for the Swachh Bharat program. And there, they were amazed to see the visuals of people casually cleaning vegetables or feeding their children on the toilet platform. Because, there is no odor, they don't feel uncomfortable about using the toilet at all. We sit with the people and we show them how different this is, what are the benefits that they could get, be it economic benefits because of the compost, their health benefits, water saving, and then we take them to go and see the toilets that are being used by their peer group in another town or another urban slum or village. After that, they decide who are going to be the people who are going to share their toilet. Then, it's we kind of know that the toilet is in safe hands. Otherwise, you have all this, the community clashes, or this religion, that religion, this is upper caste, lower caste. None of that comes into our toilets because it's the beneficiaries who decide who is going to be sharing the toilets.
When you said this, one of the important thing you also mentioned about Swachh Bharat Mission, you also mentioned about community, toilets. That is how. So in the Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0, in this year, the major focus is going to be community sanitary complexes.
Yes.
Various state governments have made their ideas and plans about making community sanitary complexes. Now that you said some of the community level processes of selecting beneficiaries and those specific activities wherein a lot of dialogues and discussions are needed. So in a situation where the number of toilets are in very large scale, the scaling up situation, without in absence of an organization like Sanitation First, when the district collector, district CEO, block development officer, block level people, Swachhagrahis, and the panchayat office bearers and users. That is the kind of broad landscape that is available. So within this, how can you overcome the limitations of community engagements, and then how this model can be made viable for our rural segments? That is the next question that I would like to place.
Sure. See, today we'll have to first see what are the challenges that we are grappling with. Now, the big challenges that are there before Swachh Bharat Mission 2 is how do we deal with the waste, and how do we deal with making each link in the sanitation value chain viable, commercially viable. Because we talk about the investment that is required in creating this underground drainage system. We talk about the number of people who are required to do scheduled emptying of the sewers. We talk about the challenges that are there in removing manual scavenging from the environment, which are the formal challenges and the informal challenges. There are so many things. We're talking about creating livelihoods within the sanitation value chain. So many things that are being grappled about. We're talking about protecting our rivers. So this particular model has the solutions for every single challenge that is being tabled and discussed today in India. But yes, it will be it does require behavioral change. We cannot say that this will be a turnkey mission where you just go and build an eco-san and then everybody lives happily ever after. But then this behavioral change, once it happens, it will not only change the health and economic pattern of that particular household, but it will also save a huge deal of money and headache. And India could probably be leading an example to the world as far as doing the circular economy model of sanitation is concerned. So when you have a solution in hand, we are only working backward in identifying how it can be implemented. All that I am looking at is a kind of attitudinal change in the stakeholders and implementers, because that is the roadblock that we have been facing for the last 12 years. People who trust our work, value our work, have not had any problems in investing in us, and they have seen the results. But then, it is not something that cannot be scaled up. It can definitely be scaled up, particularly the DWAT system. For the user, there's absolutely no change. They are going to use the same flush toilet like what they're using in their own households. But then the water is not going away, wasted. It is going to be recycled to again go back and flush those toilets. So if you think EcoSan is difficult, fine, no problem. Go and do the DWATs. But if you think it is a rural area where doing EcoSan is fine, there will be cover material available, because again, people ask me this question again and again. Almost everybody has moved into LPG today because they are getting the subsidy. So you're talking about covering with ash, which is a very primitive idea. Nowhere are we saying that only a person who's using a chula has to use a toilet. Here is a school in Chennai, the city where I am talking to you from, where it's one of the premier institutions of the city, where people from the I would say the elite layer send their children to that school. That school has completely retrofitted their toilets into EcoSan, purely because they feel the children will have to learn how to protect the environment. And they are not using any ash. All they use is sand from their playground. You could use any dry soil that is available. That is something that no city or no town can say that it is not available. Even in Assam, even in Sundarbans, where we have implemented this project, In Sundarbans, people are using sawdust because that is easier to get for them than dry soil. So it could be any cover material that will cut off the oxygen supply from the fecal matter so that the smell does not come, and then it is able to decompose quickly. That is all that is required. So, you know, this is just a more, I would say, environmentally friendly version of the Do Gadde toilet, where again you have all the celebrities taking out the compost. Here you will have the normal people taking out the compost. That's all, that's the difference. If you can accept Akshay Kumar, you can accept a normal man. End of story.
One, supplementary kind of question comes here is, the container-based sanitation. Given that a district has as many blocks and a large number of panchayats, even if each panchayat is having one community sanitary complex that is using container-based sanitation, with a fecal sludge management plan or a treatment plan to convert this into the fertilizer, how viable is this model, and what kind of an investment is needed for a district for making a container-based community sanitary complex working in a district or a block level landscape?
Right. So here, there are two things that we have to take into consideration. Now, the big advantage of container-based sanitation is even today we have a yard right in the middle of a residential area. Because the boxes have already composted for more than 40 days underneath the toilet. When we bring it and we stack it in a yard, there is absolutely no odor. And there is no action, like it is not like a whole, treatment plant with lot of machinery, and then there is raw fecal matter that is brought and kind of, it's entering the pipelines and it's being processed. There's absolutely nothing like that. All that happens is these containers are all stacked in the yard. They are all data logged to measure the temperature variation to make sure that all the pathogens have been killed in that container. And then they are removed after a period of 6 months. So this could be a livelihood option. We're talking about creating livelihoods in the sanitation value chain. This could actually be a livelihood option because anybody can go and be the transporter to transport the containers from the toilets to the yard, because there they are not touching anything, they are not holding anything. The container is already sealed. They wear PPE, they bring it to the yard. Any household that has got place to offer can actually serve as the yard for stocking these containers. It could be a beneficiary, it could be a panchayat building, it could be somebody's, all these rice mills. Earlier, that's the common place that is getting converted into storage places. You could put the containers there, and then all that you need is a mixer, the concrete mixer that we normally have, where we add the neem cakes and other additives to increase the nutrition value. And again, the buyers could all be from that village or that block itself, where they could take this agricultural input, the compost, and then use it for their agricultural fields. So it's kind of, it creates livelihood in that whole, and that whole circular economy model functions from any level. It could be a village, it could be a block, or it could be even an entire zilla or a district. Absolutely, there is no problem. And you can place these toilets. Another advantage is that you don't have to necessarily have a plot of land where you're building 10 toilets or 20 toilets. Since these are community toilets, yet have the flexibility to be movable. Each street or each gully can have its own toilet block. So you don't have to plan so much on whose land is this, how does the government acquire this land, how do we construct this, what is the maintenance cost, how many cleaning staff do you need. Nothing. This is a community owned, community operated model, so to speak. So the 10 households that share a toilet decide who is going to take turns to clean the toilet. It's basically pouring water and then using a jadu to clean the toilet. That's all that is required. And then the 10 households can either decide to share the compost that is generated or give it away to the government, and the government can sell it through the agriculture department, because we do the tests after every batch of compost is generated to check for pathogens. We also give the nutrition certificates, because the agriculturers, the farmers needed to see what is the dosage to be used for growing the crops. So it's completely, I would say, it ticks all boxes of challenges that a panchayat might be facing in dealing not just with waste treatment and management, but also with livelihoods, employment, making optimal use of space that is available, completely keeping the village open defecation free, and also conserving water.
All right. So there is one, associated challenge. I'm quite keen to know how you are addressing this. When it is a work related to sanitation value chain, in special reference of Indian caste system and the way our society is structured in our culture, the predominant challenge is that that kind of a work will be very clearly allocated to specific castes and groups. So how in sanitation works, overall work, you overcome this problem and made it responsibility of the entire community, irrespective of their specific caste or religion or whatever. Yeah.
I'm so glad you asked this question, Raman, because that's something that we've overcome purely because of the beneficiary-based approach. Because in any village where we go and we start the work of providing either eco-san toilets or the container-based toilets, we start with the most vulnerable of the population. So basically, women-headed households or transgenders or people who, like aged people whose children have moved away to the village, and it's only the aged husband and wife who are staying there, or the houses with disabled children. So we start with these groups. When these groups understand the value that the toilet is providing to them, they become then the brand ambassadors of talking about these toilets. They would say there is absolutely no odor, there is absolutely no cleaning hassle or anything. And then, they're more than happy to kind of maintain that toilet. And once they start doing that, we have about 8 staff who are full-time payroll, and then of course we expand our team size depending on the need of the projects. None of them are from those castes that are categorized to be doing sanitation jobs. None of them. They are all users of toilets who came forward to participate in the cause, and they are earning their livelihood out of that. So we have actually identified single women or destitute women, and then we have trained them to become community organizers or trained them to become transporters, so that they also have their livelihood and they also become the ambassadors of the work that we are doing. When we started doing that, then I think automatically that kind of stigma that stayed around X person or only X community should be doing this work disappeared, because people saw it as, if I learned how to do this, I will get a job, I will be able to take care of my children. And when they started seeing it like that, it kind of opened all the doors of stigma and discrimination. And not a single person that we have working with us is from that community that is supposed to be doing this work. They are all, in fact, we have 2 boys who are MSWs, who actually came and are working with us as transporters because they wanted to see how they can value add into this system. And another thing I forgot to mention when we were talking earlier is that the entire community-based sanitation system that we have is governed by the WHO Sanitation Safety Plan. So we are part of the CBS Alliance, the International Community-Based Sanitation Alliance, and the 6 organizations that are providing community-based sanitation have been directly trained by WHO in London to develop a community sanitation safety plan. So every step that is undertaken, right from containment up to handing over the compost to the agriculturists, is completely governed by this WHO advocated, trained and certified sanitation safety plan.
So one more, thing that people will be curious to know about will be the kind of personal protection and safety measures that you will be using for people who are transporting this or treating this. So what all are the requirements of personal protection and safety measures?
Yeah. So basically, they have the complete PPE, which is their overalls, and they have their helmets, they have their gloves, they have their gum boots, and then there are also special hooks with the platform. So basically, what they would do is they place the platform underneath the toilet, and then they would push the 5th container behind the toilet, so that the first container will fall on the platform. This platform then has 2 hooks, something similar to a traditional swing that you would find in your households. There are 2 hooks, and then there are these locks that are there in the hooks. So they use the locks to carry the container to our van, and then they load it in the van. In the van again, we have fabricated the van in such a way that the containers are stacked one over the other, and then there are these preventive rods that are placed at each level. So even if there is an accident, or even if the van is going up a slope, coming down a slope, the containers cannot move at all at any given point in time. So spillages or the container lids opening, all that has been completely avoided. Similarly, when they are offloading also, they will use the slope and the lever to remove the containers from the van and then stack it up. Our staff have been given medical insurance, health insurance, all the vaccinations, and they are also medically tested annually to see their level of fitness. So this is the plan, that health and safety plan that we follow as far as our yard is concerned.
All right. So that leads to one more, question about this logistics thing. So if one district has to operationalize, say, 200, toilets, container-based toilets and sanitation system, what is the kind of cost that it will incur?
Capital cost of the toilet is about 60,000 rupees, and it will cater to about 40 people. So when you break it down into a per person cost or a family cost, it's actually quite negligible. It works out to around 3,000 to 4,000 rupees per family. But this cost is because we have so far only implemented these toilets in batches. But if we were to mass produce, like suppose we were to make 200 toilets at one go, definitely the cost of production can come down considerably. Again, the maintenance cost at the moment is only about 150 rupees per household is what we are looking at, because that cost we use for providing cleaning services, minor repairs, or if there are households that don't have access to cover materials, so if we have to give them ash or sand, then that is the cost that we are incurring. The yard cost, because we have a hired yard, we are incurring about 7,000 rupees per month for the rent of the yard. But in case, as I mentioned, if they are able to identify places that belong to the panchayat or a common yard where all the boxes can be stored without cost, then that cost will no longer be there. The compost is sold currently at about 10 rupees a kilo, which then provides for the staff cost, the community organizers cost, or the cleaning staff, the transporting staff cost come from the sale of compost.
Right.
And for 3 years, we take care of end-to-end maintenance of the toilets, after which it will be at a cost. That is the model under which we have been operating so far. If the compost is taken over by the government and sold at a higher price, because today you find if you were to buy organic compost from a nursery, it costs 100 rupees a kilo. We are giving it at 10 rupees because we are selling it only to the agriculturists. If we were to sell it to in an urban city to nurseries or the elite who have their own household gardens, then definitely we can sell it at a higher price. So the revenue that comes in from these toilets can be pitched at higher levels depending on how the government or any implementer wants it. Even if they want to kind of make it like a self-help group that takes care of the running and maintenance, and the self-help group wants to charge a per household cost or something. Those models are all feasible in this. We have so far run this as a public-private donor funded project for the vulnerable people who cannot afford to even go to the pay and use toilet. So we have not looked at it as a revenue model. But then this can clearly be converted into a revenue model at any point in time by any urban local body, depending on whatever model will work for their own geographies.
For the national and state level policy makers, what is the kind of point and messages that you would like to convey there?
I think the first point that the policymakers will have to look at is at including all types of sanitation when they are looking at meting out a sanitation plan. Because as I mentioned clearly, the Niti Aayog report very clearly mentions that by 2030 our demand for water will be twice of what will be the supply of water. On the other hand, you have the nation on a mission to provide pipe water supply to everybody, every household by 2024. So if they want to balance out both these things, the options that are available to them is clearly not flush toilets. So when there are other options that have been tried and tested and have been found successful, we are happy to be having policymakers visit us, look at our projects, ask questions, give us recommendations, and scale this up. And we are happy to be working with government or any other institution as technical support agency in providing inputs on what has worked for us and how we have gone about implementing this. If only the policymakers would look at all these options that are available, which could be the not just the permanent solution for sorting the sanitation and water issues of the country, but also if India could be an example in walking the talk as far as circular economy is concerned, as far as other nations are concerned, then why miss out on that opportunity? So I think once the policymakers' attention has been diverted towards this, they have the wherewithal and the knowledge and the technical expertise to scale this up and take it to the next level.
All right. So, if you are talking to a district collector or a CEO who is leading a district level campaign, who are actually at the front line of implementing the sanitation, how would you advise them?
Yes. So what we had done in Cuddalore, I'll share my example. I don't know if I am qualified enough to be advising a district collector, but I think we can definitely share the field level example, because I had mentioned in 7 villages we had complete. We have converted all the toilets into EcoSan in 7 villages in Cuddalore district, and one of them was the first village to become completely ODF free. So when we invited Dr. Shanta Sheila Nair, who was then a senior IAS officer in the Tamil Nadu government, to come and inaugurate the this first ODF village in Cuddalore, which had become ODF because of the construction of EcoSan toilets, she had actually called the district collector to also to the particular inauguration. And when they saw that here is a model that can be kind of an example that can be replicated, the collectors then were very, very proactive in carrying this message across. And it's probably only in Cuddalore district where you would find these wall paintings which say, use EcoSan toilets if you want to protect the environment. Nowhere else have I seen the government's messaging. This is not sanitation first messaging. It's the government messaging about where they talk about generally about open defecation. It says use a toilet, you don't go to the toilet in the open. All those messages that they were doing about during the Swachh Bharat Mission phase 1, there would be several messages which are about EcoSan, which you would not find anywhere else, which kind of came about because the district collectors were able to actually see the impact of doing EcoSan. So I think the best thing I would like to request them is that they see the evidences in action, and then they are able to draw their own inferences on how they will be able to replicate it in their own locations.
Most important parties in sanitation or stakeholders in sanitation to convince are the elected representative of the local panchayats, gram panchayats, and the secretaries over there who actually run the show. Any specific messages to them?
The messages is kind of, again, it's the same thing. You can't kind of turn the system around in one day, because the way the system is currently functioning, they have their benefits in the way the system is currently functioning. So when you go and say, here I have come with a magic wand which is going to make the world a better place to live in, but probably it will make you feel less important or a little poorer, not everybody is going to like it on day one, which is why what we do is we actually take them to go and see, we kind of do the experiential, visits, where they see that how the other panchayat leaders are talking about this system. Everywhere you would meet those early adapters who have actually tried this and found this to be successful. When others see this and the way they are treated, the way they are speaking with confidence, in fact when Doordarshan came to cover our projects, more than the staff, it was the panchayat leaders who were talking about this system, saying immediately we got the Gram Puraskar award, we got the Nirmal Puraskar award, because all the government awards are actually received by these panchayat leaders. And it is actually a feather in their cap when they are able to bring about these changes. So when they do the vermicomposting, when they are actually doing the gobar gas with all the the gobar that is kind of littered, because that's another problem, because the cattle, the dung that is dropped in different places very often goes and it blocks the sewage pipes. So the sewage blockage is because of the dung going and blocking there. So then we talk to them about this alternative sources of energy, and then they adapt that. All this is brownie points for them when they apply for all the government puraskars. And when they achieve that, then it means that they are an able administrator. It also means longevity of their own span as a community leader. And even if they don't get re-elected, then people kind of treat them with reverence. And we also recognize these panchayat leaders who adapt EcoSan by giving them awards, inviting them to talk in the schools about the work that they have done in the village. So it's kind of a, we motivate on one hand and we also educate them on the other. And then they are smart people, they learn, and then, they really take it up to scale. So yeah, that's how we have been operating.
One concluding question is that if one of the block development officers or a district collector or a district CEO is ready to do a district wide kind of initiative to do community sanitation complexes using the container based model, would you be able to support them?
Absolutely. That's why we are here.
Thank you so much.